My dad beat me up and disowned me on my 18th birthday for raising my voice at my golden brother, yelling, "You're a failure that is not worth celebrating." So I made them regret it. Sup Reddit. When I turned 18 on a Saturday in late September, I'd been counting down to that exact day for 3 years straight. Not because I wanted to vote or buy scratch-offs or whatever regular kids look forward to. I was counting because that was my expiration date on their control. The day they legally couldn't drag me back home if I decided to disappear. I, 22 male, grew up in one of those houses that photographs well. Two-story craftsman, white trim, hedges that my dad obsessed over every weekend. From the curb, we looked like we had it together. Inside, though, it was like living in a house where I was the one thing they wished they could hide. My brother Evan is 2 years younger, and he's been the favorite since the second he took his first breath. Not exaggerating. The kid could torch the garage and they'd ask him if he needed therapy and a new Xbox to process his feelings. Meanwhile, I left a wet towel on the bathroom floor once and got a 45-minute lecture about respect and responsibility that ended with my dad asking if I was raised by wolves. Growing up, I learned to exist quietly. Light footsteps, no complaints, always one step ahead of what they needed so they wouldn't have to ask. My dad had this look he'd give me, like I annoyed him just by being there. My mom was worse because she'd smile while saying garbage like, "Evan's just naturally talented, sweetie. You have to work twice as hard to keep up." Evan got the genetics, the personality, the breaks. After my mom lost 3 pregnancies before him, he became their miracle baby, their second chance. And I was just the kid they had before they figured out what they actually wanted. I tried, though. Pulled decent grades, worked part-time at the local hardware store loading bags of mulch and concrete mix after school, never caused problems. Saved every dollar because I already knew college wasn't happening with their money. Whenever my dad talked about my future, he'd grunt something like, "You'll figure it out. You're resourceful." Evan got a brand new gaming laptop at 16 for school. He mostly used it to stream videos and game until 3 a.m. When I asked to borrow it once for college research, my mom said to ask Evan first. He told me to get my own. End of discussion. So when my 18th birthday rolled around, I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a card with $20 inside. Maybe a sheet cake from the grocery store. Something that acknowledged I existed. I woke up around 10:30, came downstairs, and found my dad tying a silver ribbon around this sleek black box on the kitchen counter. Evan was bouncing around like it was Christmas morning. My mom had that fake camera-ready smile plastered across her face. Nobody looked at me. Not once. My mom finally noticed me standing there and said, "Oh, perfect timing, honey. Evan, go ahead." I just stood there, confused, frozen. Evan ripped into the box and pulled out this expensive stainless steel watch, leather band, the kind that costs more than 3 months of my hardware store paychecks, the kind you see in magazine ads for cologne and luxury cars. "Yo, this is sick," Evan grinned, sliding it onto his wrist and turning it to catch the light. "Now I don't have to keep stealing yours, Dad." My dad laughed and ruffled his hair. "You earned it, champ. We're proud of you. Earned it." The kid's biggest accomplishment that month was making JV basketball and not getting suspended for vaping in the locker room. I stood there waiting for somebody to remember, to look at me, to say the 2 words that actually mattered today. My mom glanced over, must have seen something in my face because she said, "Don't look so bitter, Nolan. Life isn't about material things. When you're older, you'll understand that character matters more than gifts." I felt like I'd been punched. She said it in that smooth, condescending voice she uses when she wants to sound wise. Like I was some spoiled brat throwing a tantrum over a toy. "Thought we were having cake," I said quietly. "Oh, we had some earlier," Evan said casually, not even looking up from his new watch. "While you were sleeping in?" I blinked. "You had cake without me." "It was just a small thing," my mom said quickly. "Nothing big. Don't make a scene." Evan smirked. "My name was on it. You missed it, bro. I mean, it was sort of a joint celebration, but it's not your birthday." "Get over it," my dad snapped. "It's just a cake, Nolan. Stop being dramatic." That's when something in my head just went. Like a wire snapping. I looked at Evan. Really looked at him. Standing there with his $150 watch, wearing the hoodie I'd bought with my own money that he'd borrowed 3 months ago, and never returned. "You know what?" I said, voice louder than I intended. "This is pathetic. You're pathetic. You haven't earned anything in your entire life. You just coast while they hand you everything and pretend you're special." Evan's face went red. "What's your problem, man?" "My problem?" I laughed, and it came out wrong. "My problem is I'm standing here on my birthday, watching you get a watch for existing, while they can't even remember what day it is. Nolan, my mom warned. That's enough. No, it's not enough. It's never been enough. You treat me like I'm some stray dog you're stuck feeding while you throw parties for the golden boy who's failed every class except gym. That's when my dad moved. Fast. He grabbed me by the shirt, shoved me hard against the refrigerator. My head cracked against the stainless steel. Everything went white for a second. You're done, he said, voice low and cold. You hear me? Done. I shoved him back, hard enough that he stumbled. His eyes went wide with shock. I'd never pushed back before, never raised my voice, never fought. Touch me again, I said quietly, and I'll make you regret it. He came at me again, this time with his fist, caught me in the ribs. Once. Twice. I doubled over, gasping for air. My mom screamed. Evan just stood there watching. My dad grabbed my face, forced me to look at him. Enough, he said. We're done celebrating a failure like you. You are just a mistake. Now get out of my sight. A mistake. That's what I was. Not his son. I straightened up, ribs screaming, tasted blood in my mouth, looked at all three of them. My mom crying fake tears. Evan still holding his watch. My dad breathing hard, fists clenched. And I realized something. They were never going to love me. Didn't matter what I did, how hard I tried, how small I made myself. I would never be Evan. So I made a choice. I walked upstairs, grabbed my backpack, stuffed in a hoodie, some socks, granola bars, my phone charger, and the $180 I'd been saving in an envelope taped under my desk drawer. I had my ID, my debit card, and a Greyhound bus schedule I'd saved to my phone 3 weeks ago, just in case. At 2 a.m., while everyone was asleep, I slipped out the back door. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I'd rather sleep on the street than spend another night in that house. The first 4 nights were brutal, not going to sugarcoat it. I bounced between the 24-hour diner off Route 12, a corner of the public library until they kicked me out at closing, and a bench behind the YMCA that nobody checked after midnight. I learned which vending machines were most likely to double drop if you hit them right, which gas station bathrooms had the best soap for washing up, and which bus routes ran all night so I could sleep without getting hassled by cops. On the 4th day, I almost got spotted. I was walking past the strip mall to charge my phone at the library, and I saw my dad's truck turning into the parking lot like it owned the place. Same dents on the bumper, same vanity plate frame. My brain went ice cold. I ducked behind a vending machine near the laundromat entrance and just stood there, pretending to scroll like I belonged. I watched him get out, look around, and then march into the grocery store like he was on a mission. He didn't see me, but I learned something right then. Disappearing isn't just leaving. It's staying gone when you're 5 seconds from getting caught. By night 5, my phone was mostly dead. My hoodie smelled like sweat and rain, and I'd eaten so many gas station protein bars, I thought my stomach might revolt. That's when I found the church downtown. They ran a shelter program out of the basement. Nothing fancy, just cots and a hot meal 3 times a week. The guy at intake was an older dude with gray hair and the kind eyes you don't see often. He didn't ask questions when I showed up with my backpack and busted lip. Just nodded and pointed me toward an empty cot near the back. I stayed there for 11 days. Met some people. Learned things. Like how to stretch $3 into 2 meals. How to spot trouble before it spots you. How to sleep light so nobody takes your stuff. During the day, I'd walk to the library and fill out job applications on the public computers. I applied everywhere. Restaurants, retail stores, warehouses, delivery services, anything that would take someone with a high school diploma and a pulse. My phone started buzzing with callbacks after about a week and a half. That's also when my dad started calling. First message was angry, threatening, then confused, then desperate. By the 4th voicemail, he was crying. Your room's still here, Nolan. Please, just come home. We can talk about this. I didn't call back. What was I supposed to say? That I'd rather sleep on a cot in a church basement than live in a house where I was a mistake? I eventually landed a job at a medical supply distribution center, this massive hub off Highway 47 that shipped hospital equipment and pharmaceutical supplies to clinics across 3 states. The pay was minimum wage plus occasional overtime, but they hired me on the spot when I showed up for the interview in a borrowed button-down. The operations manager, a guy with forearms like steel cables, looked at me and said, "You show up on time, you work hard, you don't steal, we're good." That's the whole deal. I showed up every single day, early. After 2 weeks sleeping in the shelter, I met the older guy from intake outside after one of the meal services. He was dropping off donated blankets and canned soup. Former electrician, retired early after his wife died. He mentioned he had this converted shed behind his house that he'd been using for storage, but he'd been thinking about renting it out cheap to someone who needed a break. I asked how cheap. He said $120 a week, utilities included. I moved in the next morning. It wasn't much. A twin mattress on a metal frame, a space heater that only worked if you didn't breathe on it wrong, a microwave, and a hot plate. Smelled like motor oil and old newspapers. But it was warm, private, and mine. The landlord left me alone mostly, just knocked once a week for rent, and occasionally left a bag of groceries on the step without saying anything about it. I worked 40-plus hours at the hub, sometimes picking up Saturday shifts when they needed bodies for urgent shipments. I kept my head down, did the work, didn't complain. After about 6 weeks, the manager started assigning me to the inventory control station, the spot that didn't require as much heavy lifting. He never explained why, just did it. At night, I'd walk to the library and work on community college applications. I'd missed some deadlines, but spring enrollment was still open. I wrote essays on my phone, saved them to a free cloud account, and printed them at the library for 15 cents a page. Every application fee hurt. $40 here, 50 there. But I paid them. I didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell anyone. By early December, I'd settled into a routine at the hub, started recognizing faces, learning names. It felt strange, like I was actually building something real. My phone still buzzed occasionally. Unknown numbers mostly. Voicemails I deleted without listening to. I figured they'd moved on by now. Converted my room into a home gym or office or storage closet. Then one day in early December, I got an email from my high school counselor. Nolan, I hope this finds you safe. I wanted to inform you that your transcript request has been canceled. Your parents contacted the school administrator and stated you would not be pursuing higher education. They requested we cease all correspondence regarding college applications. I wanted to make sure you were aware. Please contact me if you need assistance. I read it 5 times. Then I called her back. She confirmed everything. My parents had contacted the school 3 weeks ago, claimed I'd decided against college, and requested my records be marked inactive. Some deadlines had already passed. A state grant I'd been in the running for was gone. I spent the next 3 days fixing it, calling the school, explaining the situation, reactivating my records. The counselor helped where she could, wrote letters, made calls, but some opportunities were already dead. That night, I sat in the shed staring at the wall, and I got it. They weren't just done with me. They were actively trying to block me, stop my future before I could prove them wrong. That was the moment I stopped feeling sad and started planning. Winter hit hard. The shed barely had insulation, and the space heater only worked if you positioned it perfectly. 3 layers to bed most nights, socks doubled up, sleeping curled tight. Work ramped up during the holidays. Doubles most weeks, back screaming, hands torn up. But every extra shift was another $70 toward tuition. The manager started rotating me into logistics coordination. Less lifting, more problem solving. Turned out I was good at it. One night, the inventory system crashed right before a major deadline. Whole team panicked. The manager was on the phone yelling at headquarters when I noticed the error message. I'd been teaching myself Excel and basic database stuff at the library between job applications. This error was simple. Corrupted data table. I walked over. Try reloading yesterday's backup. Current database is corrupted. The manager stared at me. You know how to do that? I shrugged. I can try. 15 minutes later, system was running. He slapped my back hard enough to bruise. You just saved us a $25,000 penalty, kid. Word spread fast. Within 2 weeks, people started coming to me when tech broke. Didn't get a raise, but people learned my name. Started seeing me as something other than the kid loading boxes. By late December, I'd saved enough for spring tuition. Applied to 3 programs at the community college. Had to get a dependency override from financial aid. Brought them shelter documentation, a letter from the counselor, proof I'd been self-supporting. 6 trips and a mountain of paperwork later, I got it done. January came. Acceptance letters. All 3 programs. Plus a partial need-based grant. I stared at the email for 2 hours. Just staring at the word congratulations, like it might disappear. That night I baked myself a boxed cake in the landlord's kitchen. Chocolate, lopsided, slightly burned. Wrote my own name on it in blue icing, just Nolan. Ate 3 pieces. Saved the rest. Next morning I registered for classes. Intro to Business Management. College Algebra. English Composition. Principles of Logistics. Didn't tell my parents. But small towns talk, and 3 weeks later I ran into a neighbor at the grocery store. She smiled wide. Nolan, heard you're going to college. Your mom must be so proud. I nodded. Yeah, must be. But I knew better. Later that week, my mom called from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't cry or yell, just said in that measured, fake sweet voice. We heard about school, Nolan. That's wonderful. I hope you remember where you came from. Like I owed them something. Deleted. Classes started. Worked mornings, lectures afternoons, library at night. Found an apartment near campus with 2 quiet roommates who paid rent on time. Left the shed with a handshake, a thanks, and $50 extra for the landlord. My business professor noticed I picked things up fast. Started giving me extra work, helping other students, setting up class schedules. Made dean's list spring semester. Landed a campus admin job by fall that paid better than the warehouse. First year was rough but steady. Second year I settled in. Better apartment, better routine, better grades. I finished my 2-year associate degree, then transferred to the state university for my bachelor's. By the time I was in my 3rd year of college overall, working on my bachelor's degree, I'd been gone almost 3 full years from home. Felt like a lifetime. Then one night in mid-September, LinkedIn message from a former neighbor. Hey Nolan, wasn't sure if I should mention this, but thought you had a right to know. Your parents just listed the house for sale. Sign went up yesterday. Hope you're doing well. I stared at the message. The house was for sale. At first, nothing. Just blank. Then something else. Something cold and focused. I opened Zillow. The listing was easy to find. Professional photos, staged furniture, generic descriptions. Charming family home with character. 3 bedrooms plus bonus room, hardwood floors, quiet neighborhood, lovingly maintained for over 20 years. I scrolled through the photos. Living room, kitchen, master bedroom, guest bathroom, then something labeled Evan's office/bonus room. My room. Except it wasn't mine anymore. Beige walls, neutral bedding, generic landscape prints. Not a single trace of the 18 years I spent in that space. No posters, no desk, no books. Nothing. They didn't just erase me. They renovated me out. I sat there for a long time, phone in hand, staring at the listing. The asking price was high. Way too high for a house that age in that neighborhood. They were clearly desperate. Probably needed to sell fast. I dug deeper. Public property records are surprisingly easy to find if you know where to look. I pulled up the mortgage history, tax records, past sales, and I found something interesting. The mortgage wasn't paid off, not even close, and they were behind. And 4 months, maybe 5, based on the public lien records. That's when the idea started forming. I wanted to see the house, one last time, before it belonged to someone else. So I did something slightly insane. I waited for an open house. They had one scheduled for that Sunday according to the listing. The agent was standing in the driveway greeting people when I showed up. I'd borrowed a dress shirt from my roommate and carried a folder with some random papers to look legit. The agent had no idea she was giving a tour to a ghost. So the sellers are super motivated, she said, clicking her pen nervously as we walked up the driveway. They've already relocated most of their personal items. Looking for a quick close. Their youngest just started college out of state. Their youngest. Evan, of course. I nodded, following her inside. She talked nonstop about crown molding and updated appliances and energy-efficient windows. I barely listened. My attention was on the spaces, the walls, the fact that I wasn't there anymore. The kitchen looked the same. The living room, too. My parents' bedroom was staged with rental furniture. Then we got to my old room. I stood in the doorway and felt absolutely nothing, just cold. The agent gestured around like she was showing off a prize. This was their son's gaming and study room. Gets amazing natural light. Perfect flexible space. Gaming and study room. That's what I'd become. Evan's overflow. I stepped inside. They'd staged it like a college prep station. A sleek desk with a lamp. A bulletin board with a dorm checklist pinned neatly. College brochures fanned across a side table. Evan's name on everything. We moved through Evan's actual room next. Still decorated. Still had his stuff. Trophies on the shelf. Posters on the walls. They hadn't touched a single thing. The backyard was worse. The treehouse I'd built with my uncle when I was 13, the one I'd spent hundreds of hours in reading and escaping, was gone. Torn down. Just a rectangle of dirt and some rusted bolts sticking out of rotted posts. The agent noticed me staring. The sellers mentioned they removed an old structure back here. Liability concern. I nodded. Didn't say anything. She gave me a minute, probably sensing something off in my silence. Want to see the garage before we wrap up? She asked brightly. I followed her through the side door. The garage was cluttered with moving boxes and plastic bins stacked against the back wall. Most were labeled in my mom's neat handwriting. Holiday decorations. Kitchen overflow. Evan, keep. Then I saw the corner. 3 bins shoved behind a broken treadmill, masking tape labels in that same handwriting. Donate! Old room junk! And the last one, smallest like an afterthought. Trash. And guess whose things was this trash? Mine, of course. I stared at that bin for a long time. The agent didn't notice. She was already heading back inside, talking about square footage. I walked to the back fence, hands in my pockets, breathing steady. This was the yard where I learned to ride a bike, where I buried a time capsule in 4th grade that was probably still under the oak tree, where I existed for 18 years. And now it was just another listing, another transaction. That night, sitting in my car after the showing, I made a decision. If they wanted to erase me, fine. But I was going to make sure the world knew exactly who I was. And they were going to watch from the wreckage. I didn't want revenge that screamed. I wanted revenge that burned slow. The kind that creeps up, destroys quietly, and leaves no trace. Then the text came out of nowhere about 2 months after I started at the community college. Evan. First time I'd heard from him since I left. Heard you're working at some grocery store and going to community college LMAO. Then another message. You know what I did to your room, right? Check this out. Attached was a photo. My old room. Except it wasn't my room anymore. Freshly painted, new furniture, staged like a showroom for the open house. Clean, perfect. Like I'd never existed. Cleared out all your garbage. Looks way better now. Guess that's what happens when the dead weight leaves. Stay broke working your little job. Don't come back. Oh, and thanks for moving out. We actually needed the space for something useful. I stared at that message for a solid minute. Not hurt, not angry, just cold. Calculating. He wanted a reaction. Wanted me to fire back something desperate or defensive. Wanted proof he still had power over me. I didn't reply. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about that photo. About how easy it was for them to erase me. Around 2 in the morning, I opened Instagram. Just scrolling. Killing time. That's when I found it. Evans Finsta. Public. Same face, different username. Some variation of his name with random numbers. The kind of account people make when they think they're being clever, but are actually just sloppy. His story was still up. Posted 6 hours ago. First slide was him sitting in my old room. Caption, cleared dead weight finally. Second slide was him filming himself in the mirror. Caption, golden child stays winning. I screenshotted both. Username visible, timestamp visible. Then I kept scrolling through his highlights. Months of posts. And that's when I hit gold. One highlight labeled Real Talk had slides from a few months back. Evan joking with friends about copying someone's calc exam. Another slide bragging about having his girlfriend write his English essays. Another one laughing about faking volunteer hours for his college apps. Screenshots of group chats where he admitted plagiarizing assignments. Nothing hidden, nothing private. Just out there, public, stupid. I screenshot every single one. Made sure the username and timestamps were visible in every shot. Then I emailed them all to myself. Opened my laptop. Created a new folder inside the one labeled House. I called it Receipts. That's when I decided. No more just surviving. No more just building my own life and hoping karma would eventually catch up. I was going to be the karma. First step was information. Real information. The kind buried in documents and public records. I kept it organized like I was building a case because I was. I had a folder on my laptop called House, and inside that another folder called Don't Lie to Me. PDFs, screenshots, dates highlighted, county links bookmarked, and a running notes file where I wrote down who said what and when. I printed the worst stuff too. Staples paper, cheap binder, plastic sleeves. Something about holding it in your hands makes it real. I spent the next 2 weeks researching everything about their house sale. Public records were enough. Permits, liens, old MLS notes, HOA minutes, and court filings. I screenshot everything and kept a running log like it was a case. And something interesting came up. The basement had flooded 3 times in the past 7 years. Documented. Sump pump failures, water damage, foundation cracks. All handled quietly, cheaply, with minimal repairs. Nothing that would show up in a casual walkthrough, but enough to be a serious problem for any buyer who actually looked. And guess what wasn't mentioned in the current seller disclosures? The flooding, the foundation issues, any of it. They were hiding it, not just leaving stuff out, actively covering up structural problems. That's fraud. Real estate fraud. Could void the sale, open them to lawsuits, destroy any credibility. I saved every document, printed copies, uploaded backups to 3 different cloud accounts. But evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed timing, strategy. I reached out to someone I hadn't talked to in years. An old friend from high school. We went to high school together, ran track on the same team. He'd gone into data analytics, now worked freelance doing background research for small law offices. We weren't close, but I'd helped him once when his car broke down junior year and he needed a ride to a college interview. We met at a coffee shop near campus. I explained what I needed. Not everything, just enough. I need to know what's buried in the public records, I said. Property history, permits, insurance claims, things a normal buyer wouldn't dig for. He cracked his knuckles, grinning. Give me 3 days. He delivered in 48 hours. My friend didn't hack anything. He just knew how to pull permits, old listings, and insurance breadcrumbs that normal people never look at. County building permits showed 3 separate waterproofing projects over 6 years. He found contractor invoices my dad had submitted to the HOA for reimbursement on shared drainage issues. Those HOA meeting minutes are public record in our county. Old MLS notes from when they first bought the place mentioned minor basement moisture. There were also small claims court records where a previous owner had sued over water damage before my parents bought it. The basement issue was worse than I thought. Not just flooding. Major foundation cracks. Water seeping through the walls every heavy rain. The sump pump was a temporary fix. The real solution would cost $35,000 minimum. And my parents knew. My friend found a building permit application from 8 months ago, where my dad had listed basement waterproofing repair, temporary patch in the work description. They'd done the bare minimum and never disclosed any of it. I had them, but I still wasn't ready to move. I wanted the timing to be perfect. Surgical. Meanwhile, I kept building my life. The college invited me to speak at their fall first-generation student showcase. They wanted upperclassmen who'd overcome challenges to share their stories. Someone who made it without family support and actually stuck with it. The event was scheduled for late October. Campus-wide. Faculty, students, parents. That's when I realized the perfect timing. What if my parents saw me on stage, recognized as a success, celebrated publicly, right when their house sale collapsed? What if everything they'd built, their image, their perfect family story, started falling apart because I succeeded without them? Not because I screamed, because I smiled. I started putting pieces in place. I prepared the documents, the evidence of fraud, ready to go at the right moment. I reached out to the college communications department and confirmed they'd be featuring my story. Full profile, photos, the works. I said yes to everything. And then I had one more card. Evan. The screenshots from his Finsta. All those posts bragging about cheating, faking volunteer hours, plagiarizing essays. Sitting in my receipts folder. Waiting. Nothing huge alone. But packaged together and sent to the right admissions office? That's different. I didn't want to destroy him. Just remind him that nobody's untouchable forever. I waited for October, and when it came, I started. The orientation speech was on a Thursday afternoon. I'd rehearsed it a dozen times, alone in my apartment, trying to sound confident without sounding rehearsed. The college wanted inspiring, so I gave them honest. I talked about growing up invisible, about working 2 jobs to afford application fees, about sleeping in a church shelter and learning to stretch $3 into 2 meals, about the moment I realized I didn't need anyone's permission to exist, about making Dean's List 4 semesters in a row while working part-time and putting myself through school. The auditorium was packed. 300 people, maybe more. Students, parents, faculty, and somewhere out there, watching online, my parents. The college posted the full video on their website that night. 3 hours later, it had been shared 40 times. By morning, 100. Old classmates commented. Teachers reached out. Strangers sent messages saying they'd been through something similar and my story gave them hope. And my parents saw it. I know because someone forwarded me a screenshot of a comment my mom left on a shared post. This is full of exaggerations. Some people just don't appreciate everything their families sacrifice. Passive-aggressive, defensive, perfect. She was rattled, and I wasn't finished. What cracked me up was how fast it moved outside my control. The local community page picked it up because small towns treat other people's lives like free entertainment. Someone posted the article, someone else posted a screenshot of my mom's comment, and then the replies turned into the kind of gossip fest that pretends to be concerned but is really just drama. The next day, the listing agent suddenly turned her listing comments off. Not a coincidence, just damage control. While the profile was circulating online, I executed phase 2. The house buyers were in their final inspection period. Everything was moving toward closing. They'd already secured financing, started packing, mentally invested in this being their new home. That's when I sent the package. Anonymous, untraceable, forwarded through a third-party mail service. Inside was a flash drive, permit history showing repeated waterproofing work, photos from the open house listing showing suspicious wall stains, screenshots of the HOA meeting minutes discussing shared drainage issues, copies of the old MLS notes mentioning moisture, the small claims court documents from the previous owner's lawsuit, and a typed letter. This property has undisclosed structural damage. The sellers knew and deliberately concealed it. If you close on this house, the liability becomes yours. Ask the agent about the waterproofing permits and foundation issues documented in county records. See what they say. 4 days later, the listing disappeared. The buyers backed out. Hard. Here's the thing about real estate. Once a buyer's inspector documents water intrusion and foundation damage, and the buyer's agent puts it in writing demanding repairs or credits, that agent has a legal duty to disclose going forward. The listing agent couldn't hide it anymore. The buyer's agent sent her a formal email requesting the seller's address undisclosed structural issues, or they'd walk. That email might not be public record, but it made the rounds. Real estate agents talk, small town agents especially. Any future buyer would hear about it. Any serious buyer's agent would ask questions. And if the agent tried to hide it now, she'd lose her license. They were stuck, behind on the mortgage, unable to sell without disclosing and repairing. $35,000 they didn't have. Staring at foreclosure, I didn't celebrate, just watched the dominoes fall. Then came phase 3. Evan was applying to universities, big schools, prestigious programs, riding on inflated grades and fake achievements. I sent one email, anonymous, to the admissions integrity office of his top 3 choices. Academic dishonesty concern regarding applicant Evan. Attached are screenshots showing falsified volunteer records and admitted plagiarism. Please review before finalizing acceptance decisions. I attached the screenshots, him joking about copying assignments, bragging about faking community service hours, laughing about having friends sign attendance sheets he never earned. I didn't need him rejected on the spot. I just needed a quiet under-review stamp that would follow him around. 2 weeks later, I heard through the small-town network that Evan's top-choice acceptance got delayed. They'd requested additional documentation. His scholarship committee put his application on hold pending clarification. Nothing final, nothing explosive. Just questions. But Evan would know someone new. He'd spend months waiting for the other shoe to drop, checking his email obsessively, wondering who was watching. That was enough. 3 weeks passed. Quiet. Normal. I went to class, worked my shifts, studied at the library. It was now November. A little over 2 years since I'd walked out of their house. I'd turned 20 2 months ago. They'd missed 2 birthdays. Then they showed up. They were waiting outside my apartment building on a Tuesday night when I got home from work. Both of them. My dad looked older, tired, shoulders slumped. My mom had that fake calm expression she uses when she's barely holding it together. "Nolan," my dad said, voice strained. "We need to talk." I stopped on the sidewalk. Didn't move closer. Just looked at them. "Now?" I said quietly. "After the house is unsellable and Evan's applications are falling apart? That when you want to talk?" My dad flinched like I'd slapped him. "We didn't know things had gotten this bad." "You didn't know? Or you didn't care?" "Please," my mom said, stepping forward. "We've made mistakes. We see that now. But this needs to stop. You're hurting your family." I laughed. Sharp. Cold. "My family? Where was my family when you forgot my birthday? Where was my family when you sabotaged my college applications? Where was my family when Dad beat me and called me a mistake?" Silence. My dad looked at the ground. My mom's eyes welled up with those fake tears she's so good at producing. "We're losing everything," she said softly. "The house is going into foreclosure. Evan lost his scholarship offers. We had to take out loans just to cover his tuition. We're barely surviving." "Good," I said. No hesitation. "You should know what that feels like." "Nolan," my dad said, voice breaking slightly. "We're sorry, okay? We're sorry. We were wrong. But you have to understand, we were under a lot of stress. We made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I cut him off. "You didn't make mistakes. You made choices. Every single day for 18 years, you chose Evan over me. You chose to make me feel small, worthless, like I didn't matter. And now you're here because you need something from me. Not because you miss me, not because you regret what you did, because you need help." My mom tried again. "We thought maybe you could help us, just temporarily. We know you're doing well with your job and school, and if you could just—" "What?" I said. "Loan you money? Co-sign something? Bail you out? Let me guess. You heard I got a promotion at work? Thought I'd be an easy mark." They didn't deny it. "We're your parents," my dad said desperately. Doesn't that mean anything? You stopped being my parents the day you threw that watch party for Evan and forgot I existed, I said. You stopped being my parents when you beat me and called me a failure. You stopped being my parents when you tried to sabotage my future. So no, it doesn't mean anything. My mom tried one more time. Nolan, please, we're begging you. We'll lose everything. I pulled out my phone, opened my photos, showed them the picture from orientation. Me on stage, holding my award, smiling. This, I said, is what I built without you. This is what I became after you threw me away. And you know what? I'm better for it. So whatever you're about to lose, that's called consequences. Welcome to the club. I walked past them toward my building. My dad grabbed my arm. Not hard, just desperate. Don't, I said quietly, pulling away. Don't ever touch me again. He let go. I looked at both of them one last time. You wanted me gone. You got your wish. Now stay gone. I went inside, locked the door, and that was the last time I saw them in person. Over the next year, bits and pieces of their story filtered through. The house went into foreclosure. They moved into a small rental across town. My dad picked up weekend shifts delivering packages to make ends meet. Evan transferred to a state school with no scholarship, working part-time at a call center to help cover costs. They tried reaching out a few times. Birthday texts, holiday cards. Always short, always surface level. Never an actual apology. Just weak attempts at reconnection that didn't acknowledge what they'd done. I never responded. I graduated at 22 with honors. Got promoted twice at my campus job. My real family? They're the ones I chose. The ones who never made me beg for a place at the table. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.